With all of the different types of champions we have in this game, it's important to know exactly what type of gear set is going to be best used on your heroes. So with that being said, this is going to be the part 2 of the kind of everything you need to know about gear series I'm doing. If you haven't seen part 1, definitely go and check that out. But today we're going to be talking about the best gear sets for every type of champion, of course for players that are doing stage 19 and on, but also for players who are farming prior to stage 19. So with that being said, let's dive right into it. What up, team? It is Murder Inc, and let's dive into the first late endgame for dummies, written by, of course, my guild leader Dees, who is from Immortal Elite or Mad, the guild that I'm in. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the flow chart here. First, we see start. Do you build HP percent on attack-based fighters? Yes, don't do that. Don't. No, pat yourself on the back. Is it a damage dealer? No, it is a healer. So for healers, the best in slot right side set is going to be Invigoration. Healing effect plus 25, we don't really care about that. The strong part is the second part. When deployed, the hero and one random ally in range gain 10% attack, which is massive. Absolutely massive. Every single healer and arguably every single tank should have this. From here, is it a healer? No. Are you hard stuck on Gear Raid 2? The answer is no. Of course, Invigoration for tanks. And if you are hard stuck in Gear Raid 2, Guardian set is the second best set if you cannot get the, I guess we'll call it the yellow or red set, which is for stage 19 and above. Outside of that, there may be a few niche sets, but none of it's going to come close to Guardian with minus 15% damage taken. Really quick side note, there is a bit of information here on the left here. I see a lot of people talking about Glacier. It's pure copium and it's not good. If you're an early game account, you can get away with it on champions like Dolores, Abomination, and Deimos. There are a few other champions you can slide in for sure here. But moving on to end game, don't do it. Just don't do it. There are much better right side pieces, and you're pretty much trolling your account if you think Glacier is better. Next part of the flowchart, is it an AoE nuker? Let's just say yes. AoE stands for area of effect. Is their damage mainly auto attacks? Yes, again. Is the ultimate cast frequently? If yes, Soulbound Arcana is the best. After the ultimate is cast, damage increases by 10% permanently up to 5 times. The answer is no. Infernal Roar then becomes the best. So this we have to kind of talk about briefly here. What does it mean if a kit of a champion, meaning their entire skill breakdown, is based off of the basic attack? As we can see here, we're going to use Silas. He has basic attack. It'll always say in gray right underneath, I guess there, we'll call it A1 for attack 1. Deals 120% damage to one enemy, prioritizing airborne units here. So if they have any other skills that isn't the A1, it's likely that champion's going to scale better with either Soulbound Arcana or the Ageless Wrath set. So first we have Soul Sniping will deal 50% extra damage to targets with Eye of Curse. Soul Sniping is not a separate attack. It deals 140 damage that ignores 50% of the target's defense. So if you want to know just how good Infernal Roar is on a champion like this, it's going to apply to 120%, it's going to apply to 80%, it's going to apply to 140%. It's going to apply if you have the bond bonus an extra 100% of the time, and then again, it's going to apply to an extra 50% to targets with Eye of the Curse here. So you can kind of see the cascading effect as to how good Infernal Roar is on a champion like Silas. Another great example of a champion is going to be Setrum. Setrum basic attack here. This all damage increased by 15%. Shielded targets take an extra 50% damage. When the hero attacks once, increases crit rate, crit damage, also scaling off a basic attack. Switches to Fortress stance and increases attack range for 15 seconds. This isn't a separate skill. It's simply increasing his attack range. And he's going to continuously use his basic attack until he enters an overloaded state where it's going to increase his damage by 70%, which is going to be affected by Infernal Roar. So now let's compare this to someone like Calypso. Calypso has a basic attack, but now she has this A2 called Evil Power. After 7 attacks, the next attack deals 250% damage. As we can see, this is not a basic attack, has its own scaling, so this is one part of her kit already that isn't going to be affected at all by the gear set Infernal Roar. The next thing, her ultimate, she's going to summon a Seal Stone, attacks together with its summoner. This also isn't a basic attack, so now we have 2 sources of damage, equaling 66% of the total options for dealing damage on this champion are not going to scale with the Infernal Roar. Now, if the basic attack was doing 1,000,000 damage per hit, and the Evil Power was doing 100,000, and the Seal Stone was doing 100,000, you could get away with using something like Infernal Roar, but that's not the case. The basic attack is hitting for a decent amount of damage, I would say 25%. Evil Power is probably doing closer to 40% damage, and the Seal Stone that is summoned for her ultimate is doing a ton of damage. So you would want Soulbound Arcana, because each time it's cast, and increase the damage even though it's only capped to 4, because she can only ult 4 times unless you have Awaken 5. This 40% is significantly, and I mean significantly better than the basic attack benefit you would be getting. Another interesting champion to consider here is going to be Salazar. Basic attack attacks one enemy. The second skill is a basic attack as well. Launches basic attack on one enemy, deals 55% damage 2 times, so both basic attacks. And then the ultimate, which is not a basic attack, launching a blitz of 6 strikes. So again, we have 2 parts of his kit on the Infernal Roar benefit side. Now we have this, which is, if you look at the scaling, 300% and 380%, that's crazy damage scaling compared to 55% on the A1. So the percentages matter a lot. You would read this and say, maybe Infernal Roar is good. It's not, because 900 rage cost, 500 starting. He uses his ult very quickly and all the time. You want high attack speed for high bleed up time, so you're going to be getting the stacks of Soulbond Arcana very, very quickly. Okay, now that the side rant is over, let's head back to the flowchart. Is their damage mainly auto attacks? Now we say no. Does the ult charge quickly? What does this mean? Rage regen, attack speed. Is their turn meter filling up fast? The answer is yes. Again, Soulbound Arcana is the perfect set. If the answer is no, then it's Ageless Wrath. Is it an AoE nuker? If the answer is yes instead of no. Used only for quick cast ultimate. Yes. Are you endgame? No. The best set is going to be the Wisdom. After using ultimate skills, increases damage by 35% for 10 seconds. Ascend it later into Soulbound Arcana, which lines up perfectly. Great game design by Moonton. And of course, if you are endgame and it's cast frequently, you would then just skip the Wisdom part and head straight to Soulbound Arcana. If you aren't casting the ult frequently, Ageless Wrath is going to be the set for you. What would be considered an infrequent ult? Someone like a Silas, even though we already established Infernal Roar is the best on it. Once he uses his ult, he has a long duration inside that ult where he's casting his ult, so he's not casting it quickly. That is exactly what that means. So if there isn't a quick cast ultimate, can they cast their ultimate often? Yes, Soulbound Arcana. No, are the auto attacks and cleave strong? If yes, Ageless Wrath. If no, Soulbound Arcana. And if this is confusing, don't worry, we're going to go over kind of the champion types for you here. Alright, so with that good stuff kind of broken down for you, I'm just going to go over some champions to give you a better idea on what to use. So Silas Infernal Roar, Setram Infernal Roar, Soulbound Arcana. This is just BP stacking for Tide. Valeria, Soulbound Arcana for Arrogance. Now, when it comes to someone like an Ajax, this is a good champion. He's uncommon, I get that for sure, but this is kind of a good example here. We have a basic attack. We have a basic attack that procs heavy damage, and we have an ultimate that is not a basic attack. So Soulbound Arcana or Ageless Wrath. Ageless Wrath is going to be, in my opinion and preference, the go-to for a lot of mages. Not all mages, but a lot of mages. Because if you saw my previous video, which tells you exactly what stats to have for your characters, for your heroes, and then we talk about mages specifically, I said you want to stack attack as much as possible. When you're doing that and focused on only attack speed, and crit rate where it applies, you are left severely lacking in the crit damage department. So, with that being said, having a 60% extra crit damage from Ageless Wrath is going to be massive. As we can see from here, I'm even using this fracture set. Is it ideal? No, but like I said, I really don't farm a lot of gear raid 2. That's on this to-do list, and it's going to be pretty much the last priority for most accounts. You want to do gear raid 3, gear raid 1, and then finally gear raid 2, but I can get into that in a separate video. So fracture here, increasing crit damage by 45% when HP is above 70%. Make sure your HP is above 70% often, aka have a good healer. So that's going to be the go-to for sure here. But if you want to talk about some of the best gear sets that aren't for stage 19 and above, we already went over the Wisdom after using ultimate skills, increases damage by 35%. This isn't as good on someone like Vierna. I guess it's decent, but there really aren't that many good options here. So if we go through here, crit rate, the Insight set, which gives you additional crit rate. Crit rate's not very good. I went over that in the last video. Check that out if you don't understand why I'm saying that. Night Terror is good. This is probably arguably one of the better ones for most mages. Increased damage by 25% for 3 seconds after making a critical hit. You should be critting quite often. Or we have the Curse set, which is also very, very powerful on most champions. Pre-red or yellow gear, which is that special gear, increases damage by 6% for up to 5 stacks for every enemy within attack range. And mages are usually AoE specialists. There are a few single target ones, of course. Marksmen, there's a kind of a split. There are good AoE and good single target ones. If they're AoE champions, Curse sets probably ideal for you because this scales off of straight increased damage, which is of course very, very strong. Next we have the Asclepius set. This is terrible. Max HP and healing effect. I guess for early game healers, yeah, if you have good gear, go ahead and use this, but honestly I would not. And outside of that, it becomes rather slim pickings for what sets are good. Single target damage plus 18%. This is a very bad set. It really is. If you're curious about what single target damage is, you would have to go to the skill kit. And what's a good example? So Vierna does 93% AoE damage. If it says ST damage instead of AoE, that's going to be single target, and it's going to directly scale with that gear set we were just looking at. Again, aka it's really, really not good because it's such a low percentage. Next, we have the Glacier set. Kind of talked about this earlier, gains an attack bonus equal to 60% of max HP when deployed. This is okay for early game, but it's not going to scale well because you're missing a whole set of additional stats on the main stat here, because red and yellow gear, of course, give higher main stat than the normal mythic gear, so we don't want anything to do with the Glacier set once we enter that endgame level of stage 19 or above in the gear raids. One set that I would say is very strong prior to stage 19 is going to be Fatality. Increases attack by 3% and ignores 12% of the target's defense and magic res. Ignore for all content outside of the guild boss is very, very powerful. It's not bad in the guild boss, but the guild boss of all content has the lowest amount of defense and magic resist, so you're not getting as great of a benefit out of it. So with that being said, anytime you see this set drop, if it rolls well, it's a clear choice for any marksman, fighter, or mage you have on your roster if you can secure a 3-set bonus. I personally used, you can't really tell by the necklaces, but I used all 3 of these for a very long time, and I had 3 sets of 3, which was rare because I didn't do a ton of farming, but I did get 3 sets for 3 different characters, and those characters carried me all the way through stage 19 of the gear raids. And I can't say it was all because of the Fatality set, but I noticed a instant and significant change pretty much when using this set. Very, very powerful. Highly would recommend for most damage dealers for sure here. So with all this information, I will kind of scan through the characters I have built here. For mages like Morrigan, this is one of the exceptions I would say to what we talked about earlier as far as ageless wrath versus soulbound arcana. I recommend Soulbound Arcana for someone like Morrigan. If you haven't seen my Morrigan video, she did like 150 mil up to 200 million damage. You heard that right. As the solo AoE damage dealer, and she cleared 120 gear rate. Her and Silas together. Had other units, Dolores, 2 healers, I think I had a Zealous, and a Marri as well, and a Laurel. So I had those champions, but I only had 2 damage dealers, one being Silas for single target, just to kill the boss at the end, and of course Morrigan as the AoE. And like I said, she dealt 200 million damage. And yeah, so after testing Ageless Wrath versus Soulbound Arcana, she cast her ultimate incredibly fast. She had really good attack speed and rage regen, so she was getting up to 50% damage very quickly, and it showed because she just did unreal damage. So these are all of the things you want to keep in mind. I do have Infernal Roar on Idril, formerly known as Tauriel. We have basic attack. Each time hero casts the ultimate, another basic attack scaling, and the attack range becomes unlimited. So the fact that her ult lasts so long, you're really not going to get a ton out of Soulbound Arcana, especially if she is Awakening 5. Let's go to the Awakening real quick. During the effect of limitless shots, every kill extends the duration by 3 seconds, and it can last a very long time with this. So Infernal Roar, or I guess Ageless Wrath, they're both going to be viable options for sure, as long as you're stacking attack, which I'm not doing very well, but it is what it is. Alright team, that's going to conclude this video on the best gear sets to use. Heard the different types of champions. I will link the sheet that I was reviewing earlier in case you're curious of it. The one that Deegs made, it is more centered around endgame players, but it's going to be helpful and useful to pretty much everyone eventually, which is the good news. So with that being said, if you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you all in the next upload.